Hello, I'm Maggie Tolan. I'm Program Director for Challenge America and the Military Sisterhood Initiative. And we are coming to you live from Colorado, our respective living rooms. And I'm sure everyone else is at home as well. And we're hoping that you're all staying safe and healthy right now as we go through these crazy times. So since I think we've all been feeling pretty isolated right now, it's just really nice to be able to get together, even virtually, to remind ourselves that we're all in this together. We're going through a lot of the same things, especially emotionally. So we've been seeing a lot of that on the Military Sisterhood Initiative and how it's become a space for connecting and sharing what we're going through, providing coping tools, and then welcome distractions as well. So as part of that, we're really excited to be doing these live events that everyone can join from their homes. So we're thrilled that you all are here. Let's see, I see Pam and Brienne, Teresa, hello, Tamra, Xiomara, Barbara, Cheryl, MJ, Brenda, Erica. Thanks you all for joining. And we have a really special guest today and just an incredible person, Kirstie Ennis. She's a Marine veteran. She was injured in Afghanistan and is a lower limb amputee, an incredible mountaineer. She is currently working toward a goal of climbing the highest peaks on each of the 7 continents, and even snowboarding down some of them. So just couldn't be more incredible, and all for charitable causes. She also has founded her own nonprofit organization, the Kirstie Ennis Foundation. So thank you, Kirstie, so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
So before we dive in, just a couple of housekeeping things. We want this to be as interactive as possible, so do use the chat. I see someone got us started there along the right side. Tell us, introduce yourselves and tell us where you're coming from, and post comments as we go. And then if you have questions, we encourage you to ask questions throughout the conversation, and you can do that by going to the button at the bottom that says ask a question. So if you click on that, you can type in your question, and then you can also upvote other people's questions so that it moves it higher up, and then we'll pull in questions as we go and try to get to as many as we can. So we're going to be talking to Kirstie today about her own journey and experiences. We're also going to bring in the topic of self-care because that's our monthly theme this month on MSI. And I think it's a really timely topic as we're stuck at home and we're dealing with a lot of anxiety for a lot of different reasons and everything we're going through. So it's a great time to learn about and incorporate new practices to take care of ourselves emotionally and physically. So we'll be talking about that. So feel free to ask her to expand on anything, and then add your own questions as well. And then for anyone who can't stay the whole time, don't worry, we're recording this and we'll repost it to MSI after the fact. And if anyone is not a member yet of MSI, you can join by going to militarysisterhoodinitiative.org and clicking request to join. So with that, let's jump in. How are you doing today, and how are you holding up with all of this?
I mean, I'm hanging in there. I mean, there's a lot of changes that I've had to deal with as of late. It's definitely a shift in my schedule, and just, I'm normally living in a life of chaos. So now everything is, I'm in 4 low at this point. Everything is in slow motion for me.
Yeah. I bet. She's used to going a million miles an hour. And so this is a big change, especially for Kirstie. So we'd love to start by hearing from you directly about your military background and just, how, what drove you to join the service, where and when you served, and then how that chapter of your life came to a close.
Yeah. So I consider myself one of the lucky ones. I was actually raised by 2 Marine parents. My mom was supply and my dad was artillery. And I remember waking up as a little girl and thinking to myself, how lucky am I? My parents get up every single day, put the uniform on, and do something for the greater good. And I knew early on that I wanted to do something that would make them proud of me, like I was proud of them. So I ended up working my tail off. I gave my parents a run for their money growing up, and I ended up graduating high school at 15 and decided that I wanted to join the Marine Corps at 17. Um, Being that my parents were very familiar with the military and what I would have to face, my dad was extremely hesitant, whereas my mom was like, good riddance, signed almost immediately, like, get out of my house, we'll see you later. But I had to lie through my teeth, just like saying that I would do a desk job like my mom to my dad. And eventually he ended up signing. And on August 8th, 2008, I actually shipped off to Paris Island. And I will never forget the moment that my recruiter looked at my dad and said, this is great. I've never put a female in for this type of job. So long story short, my cover was blown. My father was angry, but I was well on my way. And I ended up spending 6 years in the United States Marine Corps as a helicopter door gunner and airframes mechanic. And on my second deployment to Afghanistan, I was down in the southern Helmand province. My helicopter actually went down. And as a result of the crash, I sustained some pretty severe injuries, everything from the loss of my left leg, pretty high above the knee, traumatic brain injury, severe facial trauma, fractures to my spine, damage to my arms, my ears, my eyes, and just a laundry list of other things. And I ended up spending 2 years at Naval Medical Center San Diego. And at that point, I was actually told that I was going to be forced into a medical retirement. And in that moment, my whole world was flipped upside down. I didn't want to retire. I didn't want to get out of the Marine Corps. I loved it. And unfortunately, I didn't have a say in it. So I ended up medically retiring in May of 2014. And I mean, obviously, on one hand, I'm devastated that it happened to me, but on the flip side, I'm grateful because it's led me to a lot of other things now too.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit about that recovery process, and what was that like for you, and kind of what got you through it?
Yeah, my recovery has been brutal. So literally 2 years I lived at the hospital. I went through 44 surgeries, every kind of therapy that you can think of, everything from physical to vestibular to cognitive, speech, and everything in between. Obviously mental health and all of that as well. And I'd ultimately be lying if I said that my recovery was over, though. I still, every single day, I am recovering. I am still adapting to my prosthetic. I am still adapting to this new way of life and how I emotionally and mentally approach different situations. So everything's, a work in progress. But I think a lot of it is just a matter of being patient with yourself, and learning to adapt to this new hand that you've been dealt. So my recovery, the physical aspect of it, was very long, but again, to this day, I'm still working through it.
Yeah. Are there any kind of self-care practices that have helped you through that process, either mentally or physically?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of it, I'm the kind of person, so I joined the Marine Corps to serve people, period. My passion truly is just people in general. So for me, I had to realize that the more I say yes to other people, I'm also saying no to myself. So whether it was, during my active duty service or my recovery or even to this day, it's a matter of being able to take 2 steps back and be able to realize that if I'm not taking care of myself, then I'm really not going to be able to effectively take care of anybody else. And in turn, with all of that, like the building blocks to all of it was just being able to shift my perspective. So I could sit here and I could be upset about everything that happened to me, or I can bundle it all up and be grateful that it happened to me. And, this is why. So, for example, I lost my leg, I lost my memory, I lost my career, I lost years of my life to the hospital. But because of that, I've gained, new people and new relationships, new experiences and opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So I think a lot of self-care practice is just the mental aspects of all of it, being able to be mindful and think clearly through different situations, being able to be present with the relationships that we have in front of us, because quite frankly, self-care also has a lot to do with, the family and friends that we're surrounded by. I'm a firm believer that our support system plays a huge role in how we get better, personally and even professionally.
Absolutely. And then can you talk about kind of where and how you you refound your purpose, and what is it about mountaineering and about charity and these things that have kind of given you this new direction?
Yeah, so I guess to kind of tie back to what I was talking about earlier. For me, when I joined the Marine Corps, yes, I wanted my parents to be proud of me. But the big picture is I just wanted to serve. I wanted to do something for other people. Doing good things for other people makes us feel good in the long run. So when I ended up getting medically retired, I realized that this new purpose could still be to serve others, but it could really be to live my life for other people. And while I was still in the hospital, I was actually introduced to snowboarding. So I started competing with Team USA in the World Cup circuit, and in snowboarding, border cross, and basically bank slalom. And at a certain point, the competition aspect was a little selfish to me, and I wanted something more. I wasn't feeling that purpose of doing something for others, doing something for the greater good. So I decided that I was going to take to the mountains in a different way. And I decided that I was going to climb the tallest peak down in Africa called Kilimanjaro. And I didn't want to do it to say, look at what I can do, watch me beat on my chest on this, on my cool robot leg. I wanted it to be climbing with that passion. So I climbed the highest peak down there and ended up raising about $150,000 for clean water for the East Tanzanians. And that's when that light bulb went off, that I could be doing things to challenge myself personally and through my rehab and recovery, but that I could also be doing something for other people in the process. So I really just joined this, philanthropic aspect of what I wanted to do with the athletics. So yeah, now I climb all over the world and I raise money for different charities and nonprofits and programs that mean something to me. And again, like I truly feel like by focusing on what I can do for other people, my problems and my pain dissipated. When you're able to put things into perspective like that and say, hey, you know what, I have a lot to be grateful for. Everything just comes together. And I don't know. I look at my life and don't get me wrong, things are hard, things are rough, but it doesn't quite matter to me because I'm still putting one foot in front of the other, and there's still people looking to me that need my help, and I can still help them.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing how you found that purpose, and it couldn't be helping people more. So Amanda has a question. She's wondering what has been the biggest personal challenges you've adapted with this new way of life?
There's a couple different aspects of that, really. I guess there's two sides of that. So initially, when I first got hurt in Afghanistan, I was 21 years old, and I had a huge hole blown through my face. My face was entirely disfigured. I lost my jaw, my teeth, the whole nine. And in that moment, at 21 years old, it was more of a self-esteem thing. In my mind, I wasn't worried about, can I run again? Can I walk? It was, who's looking at me differently? And that was just a huge internal battle. I didn't think I was worthy in some ways. I didn't think, that I was attractive, or could I have a family again? There's a number of different things that I really had to work through in the very first couple of months of my recovery. But then in May of 2013, so almost a year after my initial injury in Afghanistan, that's when I found out that I was, unfit for duty, that I was going to be medically retired. And the next month was my Alive Day, so the anniversary of me getting hurt. And it floored me. I was absolutely blindsided. I thought that I was stripped of my purpose. Again, that whole worthiness element came into it. And I actually tried to take my own life. Fortunately, I was unsuccessful. And I'll never forget the moment that my dad came to me crying and said, "You've got to be shitting me. The enemy couldn't kill you, and now you're going to do it for them." And for me to face my father and to realize how selfish I was, that was huge. That was the biggest struggle for me. Of course, getting out of the military when I didn't want to, that was a whole process in itself, losing that purpose. But then to know that I was letting people down, like my family or the men and women who didn't make it home, the fact that I was so self-centered in that moment and not being able to look at those around me, that was hard because that's not who I am. So I really had to find myself all over again on that first Alive Day and in that moment of finding out that I was going to be retired.
Yeah. So what do you think helped in that shift? Do you think from, being in that place to finding that place of gratitude and purpose? Again, is it that focus on others? Is there anything else you would highlight?
I mean, a lot of it was focusing on others, but a lot of it was just kind of, I mean, personal accountability. Now I don't compete with anybody else ever. Don't get me wrong, I might get envious because someone's a little bit faster or stronger than me, but I try to just compare myself to the person that I was yesterday. I'm extremely competitive with the things that I did yesterday or what I worked on yesterday. And to me, if I can work on who I am today to be a better person for tomorrow, then that's what I want to do. So a lot of it, again, accountability, but also self-reflection and being able to be honest with yourself. And the moment that I realized that I wasn't the person that I wanted to be, that's when everything changed. I mean, I hate to say it, but like being honest with yourself is, I mean, that's the hardest part. It's easy to hide behind a lot of things.
Right. So thank you for sharing all that. And would you mind kind of describing what a typical day in the life of Kirstie Ennis looks like with all that you do? I mean, on more of an average day and not a global pandemic day.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh man. So a normal day to day. So I'm a firm believer in keeping a routine. Like I love to try and go to bed at the same time and try to wake up at the same time. And I love waking up when the rest of the world is still sleeping because that's me time. No one can get a hold of me. No one can call me or text me. So I wake up every morning. I work on a language. Right now it's Spanish, but I've done Italian and I've done Finnish and I've done Russian now at this point.
Wow.
But it's just something to like get my brain going first thing in the morning, and then I roll right into meditating. I'm terrible at it. I don't have the attention span for it, but I really make a conscious effort to be able to force myself to be present and to learn about how I can be a more patient and less reactive person. And then from that moment at about 8 o'clock, I roll right into work. And I unfortunately right now stare at a computer screen for way too long. And once I'm like have all that finalized, I make it a point to work out, to be physical. I think sports and athletics and the mountains and all that saved my life. I wouldn't be where I am right now, mentally, physically, or emotionally, without the athletics and the training that I'm doing. I think in those moments that we're training and intentionally making ourselves suffer, that's when we find out what we're truly capable of. And then from that moment on, I roll into just taking time for friends and family and focusing on those relationships that mean something to me. And then beyond that, I make it a point to do something that makes me happy. Even if it's just reading a book for 30 minutes, sitting outside in the sun, doing nothing with no phone, no screens for 30 minutes, or even just taking a bubble bath. And that's how I try to round my day out. I like to stay focused on the goals, of course, but there's also a huge part of, again, taking care of yourself so you can take care of what you need to.
Absolutely. So there's a question here about how you maintain your motivation to train almost daily, and if you have any advice for us normal humans.
I love that. I mean, I think my motivation, again, just stems from looking at who I was yesterday. And obviously different things, we're all going to be motivated by different things, whether it's how we look or, how, if we're running faster or whatever it is, whatever our different measurement scale is. I think it's important to, again, be patient with ourselves and say, hey, none of this is going to happen overnight. But I think it's also, again, important to say, this is who I want to be tomorrow. And if I'm not training, I'm not going to be able to get up those mountains. I'm not going to be able to run, marathons or do any of the things that I'm doing. So I think it's a lot of just like digging into here and up here. And I always say, like, my personal mantra through everything, literally since 2012 when I got hurt, what is the 6 inches between your ears and what's behind your rib cage that dictate what you're capable of. So whether it's training or work or school, whatever it is, if you keep your head and your heart in the right place, I mean, you can overcome so much. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. It definitely does. Do you have a favorite kind of self-care activity or one that you know benefits you the most and maybe you don't do it as much as you should? Or
Yeah, so honestly, I mentioned it earlier, again, meditating. I am god awful at it. And I try to do at least 10 minutes a day. I normally make it through about 3 minutes until I'm off in la la land thinking about my to-do list or what's next throughout the day. But that's something that it means a lot to me, because it means that for at least 10 minutes out of my day, I'm at least trying to put myself first, trying to put myself ahead of my schedule or any work or any people. And I really do. I encourage everybody to try, because even if it's just focusing on your breathing or thinking about how you want to outline your day, the intentions, whatever it is, I think it can be a really powerful way to start off your day, because you're starting it with a clear mind and with a clear heart, and you're able to basically eliminate all of the fog. If you go into your day saying, this is what I want to accomplish and this is how I'm going to accomplish it, you're going to accomplish it. Again, I mean, I feel bad. Like, I feel like it's pot calling the kettle black right now because I'm not good at it, but I do. I mean, it's something that I make a real effort to be able to do.
Yeah. It's definitely not an easy activity to do. I find that guided meditations are helpful for me to kind of stay in it.
Well, and to piggyback off of that, and I mean, I think there's a lot of us out there that struggle with this. To me, self-care is also self-talk. I personally have a bad habit of, if I make a mistake throughout my day, like I beat myself up internally. Oh, that was stupid, or why'd you do that, or you could have been better. And to me, like, being able to wind myself in is also self-care, and say, you know what, instead of saying something negative about myself or to myself, let's shift that and say something positive about, okay, you handled that really well. Maybe next time we could do it this way. But just to, I mean, take time out to pat yourself on the back. I mean, we all wear a ton of different hats. We all fill a ton of different roles. So give yourself some credit, because none of this is easy, especially in this time that we're living in with this pandemic and obviously the current state of our society. It's challenging. So make sure that you give yourself credit and be patient with yourself. We all deserve it, because none of this is easy. This is all foreign. This is all new.
Right. Yeah, I like that you brought that up and how you phrase it as self-talk. I think we can all relate to that. So Erica asked a good question, kind of going back to your service. Do you still feel connected to your service? For example, we know one day we will all get out, and the fear of being forgotten. Did you ever feel like that?
Yeah, I mean, taking off the uniform, I mean, you guys see it behind me. I still have medals. I still, like, there's all sorts of memorabilia throughout my house of my military time, or even just history in general of the Marine Corps. And for me, taking that uniform off, especially because I didn't want to, it was hard for me. And especially, I mean, I live in a town of 9,000 people. So for me, it was more of being able to relate to other people and be able to share experiences and have that camaraderie and that brotherhood and sisterhood. I was really afraid of losing that. But I don't know. I think a lot of it comes down to being able to, like, be extremely proud of your service, but also recognizing that it's only one chapter, whether you're in for 4 years or 20 years. And while it influenced your life, it's time to close that chapter and use what you learned in the military to create this new civilian life, to this new career and everything else. So on one hand, yes, I was absolutely devastated and confused about all of it. But at the same time, I knew that I was better equipped because of my military service to live a healthy, happy, successful life later on down the road. When I first got out, I had a really hard time reconnecting with some of the guys and gals that I was in my different squadrons with. But I mean, I encourage everybody to capitalize on technology, just like we're doing right now, to be able to reconnect with those people that you lost. I still talk to people from the helicopter crash. I talked to guys from 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines that did my helicopter recovery. I talked to, Vietnam vets, World War II vets, and everybody in between, just to make sure that we have that community and that family, alive and well. I think it's important. And just because you're out and you have a DD 214, it doesn't necessarily mean that your duty to one another ends. Like, we still have to hold each other accountable, and we still have to show up for one another.
Definitely. Amanda also asked how you handle ignorant or rude questions about your story or your physical body.
I try to just shake it off. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And for every one person that has something negative to say, and there will always be at least one, there's 99 other people saying something amazing or how you affected their life. And to me, even if it was switched around and there was 99 people saying something negative about me, it's that one person that I made an impact on their life, whether it's a smile or an opportunity, whatever it is. Everybody can have their own opinion. But if you know and hear that you're doing the right thing, it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say. And quite frankly, especially when it comes to like, obviously with social media and keyboard cowboys, as I call them, if they care enough about what I'm doing and I don't even know them, like I'm clearly affecting their life and they're not affecting mine whatsoever. So I think that's important to realize is, again, everybody's allowed to think what they want to think, but it doesn't mean that it has to affect you. And into that, like, don't get me wrong, there are days that people can say some nasty things to me, and for a second I will get in my head. But then again, I just shift my perspective and say, hey, you know what? He was raised differently than me. If he wants to be disrespectful and rude, I'm not going to take it personal because he obviously has a problem with himself or herself. And it's not with me. So I try to not take anything personally anymore. Because even if you're doing everything right, there's going to be somebody out there that has something to say.
Always. Yeah. Tamara said she loves keyboard cowboy. I like that too. So kind of getting a little bit more into, you know, what we're going through right now, and just wanted to ask a little bit about how it's impacted you with your personal goals and, you know, just your routine now.
Yeah. So typically I live a very high speed, low drag life. I mean, I am on the road probably 60% of the time. Last year, I spent 4 months on mountains, so expeditions, just back to back to back. And so I'm constantly just going. And for me, like this came to a complete stop, full halt, everything. I mean, I've had speaking engagements canceled. I had my big Denali climb that was going to last from end of May through end of June. That was canceled and rescheduled for 2021. So now I have this ample amount of time. I have about 6 months of time now that I don't know what I'm going to do, which on one hand, it's very scary because I'm an idea factory and I have to be moving. And I mean, complacency can be dangerous, especially for us with the overactive minds. But you know, I've really just decided that I'm going to take this time to work through the things that I've neglected. And to be totally transparent, I'm doing a ton of therapy, which I haven't done in a long time, both physically and mental health. I'm taking the time to work on weaknesses that I know that I have. Sometimes I have a sharp tongue and I'm not the best communicator. So one of the things I'm working on is being able to sit down and be real and raw with people without being offensive or maybe using colorful language. But yeah, I mean, I'm just taking this time to be able to look in here and make those new goals. Again, work on those weaknesses that I do have and just, I want to come out of this better than I was when I came into it. So that's really what I'm using the time for. Again, a little scary. You know, I have businesses in California that are shut down, struggling, small startups. I have my own nonprofit that's struggling right now because, of course, people don't want to donate in times like this. And I mean, it's a lot to work through. I mean, it's emotional. But again, like I'm working on communicating it. I think being able to talk to other people and instead of internalizing these things, it's huge. Because quite frankly, I'm not alone. I'm not special. You know, I'm not special in any of this. So to be able to like lay it all out there and talk to other people and see how they're overcoming it, I mean, that's a big deal. To strengthen those ties and strengthen the communities that we're a part of, we're going to come out of all of this stronger than we were before. I believe that.
Yeah, I hope so. I feel that too. And you are special. But you're right, we're all in this together. And do you think that there is anything that from this experience that might lead you to, you know, change what you're doing when we do come out of this, you know, in your routine or how you go about your life?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that I'm really going to do is being able to take a time out when I need a time out. You know, I keep jokingly saying that I'm taking a timeout of this mandatory timeout, but I think that's one of the things that I've really neglected in the past is being able to say, hey, I'm going to throw a flag out and I need to take 15 minutes to myself to be able to work through what I'm dealing with. I'm great at being able to bottle things up and push my feelings and whatnot to the side and focusing on others. But again, I'm not being effective or efficient if I'm not working on me. So a lot of this self-care stuff that I talked about earlier in my recovery, I didn't really use in between my recovery and what we're dealing with right now. And right now, a lot of that's coming up back up again. And so obviously it's significant, and I need to be able to carry it forward for the future, and not just intermittently. I need to be able to do it consistently to really get the full impact of all of it. And again, like, I want to be able to maintain a routine. It would be super easy for me to wake up at 10 a.m. every day and go to sleep at 10 p.m. or any of that. But right now, it's just being able to remain consistent. So that way, like, I know what's going on at all times and I can be present. I think when we're present, we're actually able to really focus on not only being the best version ourselves, but making people around us better as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's right, that could be one of the silver linings coming out of this, is getting this time to spend the time on ourselves, and then hopefully continuing with that. So another question was about any lessons or anything you've learned, any valuable lessons from your travels and exposure to different cultures.
I mean, I kind of feel bad because I keep saying it over and over and over again, but patience. I am not a patient person. And oftentimes on one hand, I'm the most empathetic person that you'll ever meet, because I will take my shirt off my back for somebody else. And I love to storytell and share. And like, I want to get a well-rounded understanding of the person that's sitting in front of me. But I had a hard time on my travels of being able to say, well, this is different than how we do things. So my travels have definitely taught me a patience and respect, and a way of basically, like, again, that perspective shifting, being able to, basically paradox thinking, being able to say, hey, you know what, I'm not always right. And somebody else might be able to develop a better idea or a better plan. And so to be able to sit people down and say, hey, how would you do this? And take constructive criticism and gather ideas, vice thinking that, the one way that I would do things is right. So I guess, in short, patience and collaboration, being able to say, hey, you're better at this than me, give me your knowledge, let's work on this. Or let's play off of our strengths and weaknesses, where you're weak, I might be strong, and vice versa. So to me, it's like, it's just people. While I was in the Marine Corps, obviously my deployments were only to Afghanistan. So the engagement and involvement that I had there was only with women and kids. And it was limited since I was in aviation. But I didn't get to really get to know and love the people the way that I wanted to. And now that I've been to 33 different countries, climbing all over the world, I can actually sit down and take the time to appreciate what makes us different. And I think that's, in our society, that's one of the things that we're lacking. We don't have to agree on everything. And I think it's beautiful that we don't. And so I just think that's important, to be able to look at somebody and say, hey, you know what, you guys operate a little bit differently than me, but I love that. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, there were a lot of good tidbits in there. Another one is about, for those of us who haven't done the best job of spending time on ourselves, where would you recommend we start?
So, again, you don't have to meditate, but I think taking 10 to 15 minutes out of your day and just sitting with yourself, no phones, no nothing, and saying, who do I want to be? What do I want to accomplish? Whether it's now or whether it's 5 years from now, but get to know yourself. Because I think, again, with wearing all of these hats and being in so many different roles, with being, at work or as a parent or as a spouse or as a sister, whatever it is, oftentimes we put so much attention on those things, and we shift from who we really are or the things that we value. I can't place a big enough emphasis on values. Like, I think if I were to ask you what you value right now, I guarantee, at least half of us wouldn't be able to really answer that question honestly, or would be totally confused by the question. I know when I was asked it for the very first time, my knee-jerk reaction was, oh, family and friends, but what does that really mean? So, I encourage everybody, 10 to 15 minutes, sit with yourself and just say, what I love about myself, the things that I want to do maybe a little bit better at. Yeah, I mean, just walk through who you are and really where you want to see yourself. And even if you want to look at it short term, say, okay, today, April 1, when I come out of the COVID situation on June 1, this is where I want to be with myself personally. For me, like if I had to put a goal on it, I just want to be more patient and I want to be able to effectively communicate. And so I really hope that the next couple of months I can work on that. I know that I'm not very good at it.
So I know this was going to be the topic that we were going to talk about goal setting this month, but then with everything going on, it didn't seem like the right time. But now that you're talking about it in this context, just wondering how you go about setting goals for yourself and really sticking to them. Is it just your mindset? Do you have any tools you use?
Oh man, so my mind is dangerous. I really am. I'm an idea factory, and I'm all over the place all the time. Like I have lists everywhere. I have just the different things that I want to tackle. And for me, like all of my goal setting is about slowing down and taking a step back and say, does this really align with what I value? Does it work hand in hand with the other things that I want to accomplish in 5 years? And being able to, again, be very transparent with myself and say, these are the 5 things that I want to work on. And so for me, goal setting really comes down to, knowing yourself and knowing where you want to be, and being able to make them realistic. I think all too often we dream big, and there's nothing wrong with dreaming big, but there's no tangible steps to getting there. So I think making like a realistic timeline, and again, those building blocks to be able to reach those big goals. I mean, that's key. And obviously, as you reach one small goal, that's positive reinforcement to meet the next one, and over and over and over again. And that's what I've done with whether it's business or with school. I have 3 masters. I'm working on a doctorate now. My small startups, very scary place to be in right now, but I mean, they're being successful, and it's all because that, we were able to make those small goals, and again, just keep reaching them over and over and over again. And quite frankly, making those little goals and reaching them, that's creating good habits. That's the easiest way to put it. I mean, and to make a simple format, just live by it.
Yeah, so I saw someone in the Military Sisterhood Initiative post about making appointments with yourself. So in terms of kind of little ways you can have that positive reinforcement and set those small goals in terms of the self-care and spending the time with ourselves, that's one idea, kind of a baby step there. So yeah. What would you say? So someone asked what the greatest challenge you faced on your expeditions was, and what did you learn from that experience?
Oh man. So I mean, so all of my climbs have taught me just extremely different things. But again, the biggest challenge in all of it is that self-talk thing. The most recent, bigger climb, the most, I guess, well-known climb that I just did was Everest. And, the whole time that I was out in Nepal, so 2 months, I had people look at me and say that you won't make it above 20,000 feet as an above the knee amputee. I had people say there's no place for you out here on these mountains, or I had people say that you don't deserve to be out here. You're going to get somebody else hurt, and yada yada. But me knowing, like, I mean, I put so much time into this. I have put so much effort. Like, I know that I deserve to be on those mountains, and I know that I'm a better mountaineer than probably 75% of the people out on Everest. But when I got to my summit day, I beat myself up. Like, it was, you're not fast enough. You're moving too slow. You're not doing this the right way. There's no way in hell you're going to make it. Those people were right. You don't deserve to or belong. You don't deserve to be out here or belong out here at all. So to me, it was really, I became, my own worst enemy in those moments. And in the moment that like I could stop and think about them and say, hey, you're out here. You're at 29,000 feet when the rest of, the majority of the world hasn't been out here ever. Even the fact that I was out there and even trying, it made a world of difference. The fact that I could focus on talking to myself that way, like on the way down, everybody thought that I was going to be, crying and emotional about what happened. But the reality is I was just so grateful for the opportunity. Now, the mindset is one thing, but if you want to talk physical aspects of what I struggled with, man, these big mountains are just crazy. For me to be out there on one leg the way that I am, I mean, I can't regulate my body temperature, which is also very frustrating. So, I mean, I'm on top of Everest, again, 29,000 feet, 28,000 feet, and I'm in a tank top. I'm sweating so much, my legs falling off, I'm falling down the side of the mountain. And so for me, one of the things that I overcome was being able to not compare myself to who I was before. So being able to say, you know what, these are the circumstances that I've been dealt. I don't have two legs like everybody else anymore. I have this prosthetic and I need to be able to embrace what it is and be able to adapt to it. So whether it was dealing with the extreme temperatures and frostbite on my residual limb, to not being able to regulate my body temperature, to dealing with swelling at altitude, it was one of those things that I just had to be able to take things in stride and say, all right, we'll handle this as it comes.
Wow. I mean, wow. Just dealing with all of that. And I know we all deal with the, negative self-talk, and I just can imagine it's all the more intense when you're tired and going through all the physical aspects as well. So it's all compiling. And then, but then what's it like on the other side of that for you? Getting through it, just.
I mean, it makes it that much more sweet. It's that much more, I don't know, powerful in the end. It's a reminder of my resiliency and my independence, that I can overcome anything, whether, again, it's something physical, the limitations that I have there, or even if it is that self-talk or that, mental and emotional side of things, that I can overcome it. And quite frankly, it's just more of like an overwhelming just sense of pride. The fact that I can struggle through all of these things. I can put my own self through this very unique, miserable hell, but I can always come out on the other side as a stronger person. I always say, like, you have no idea what you're capable of until you're in those moments. And so for me, that's why mountaineering is so special, because, the odds aren't in my favor. I'm not guaranteed to succeed. I have to turn around all the time. I've been unsuccessful time and time again, but the fact that I keep getting up, going back after it, and the times that I am successful, it makes it all worth it. That suffering, yeah, I mean, it makes it that much sweeter. I mean, if you're comfortable, you're not growing, and I think that's what, like, people are afraid of being uncomfortable, and they're afraid of, I don't know, facing their fears and everything else because of what might come from it. But the reality is the product of that is going to be so much better and so much stronger. And so I encourage everybody to take a step out of that comfort zone, because what you're going to find is that you're going to gain confidence in so many other ways. Like, if I had to think back on my recovery, snowboarding was that one thing for me in the beginning, because I'm originally from Florida, so no mountains, no snow. But snowboarding was just a whole new world for me. It really was. And it catapulted me into everything else that I have going on right now. But it took a huge leap of faith, and being totally uncomfortable with where I was at, and learning something new. So yeah, another thing is just use this time wisely. Try something new, because you're going to gain far more than you ever dreamed of from it.
I love that. If you're not uncomfortable, then you're not growing. And Tamara said, how many times you fall doesn't matter. It's that you continue to get up and try again. So I think that's just it too. So Brienne Elizabeth asked about, well, first she said, you're an awesome lady, and that about balancing, challenges of the day-to-day and tasks and how you prioritize.
Well, I mean, there's the very obvious as far as like prioritizing, like, there are things that you have to do, unfortunately, to get through the day-to-day and, adulting, as we call it. But with prioritizing the things that I'm passionate about, I kind of boil it back down to, like, what's going to mean the most to me, what's going to make me a better person at the end of the day, and what's going to be the most impactful for the people around me. So whether that's, a group of people that I am helping in a different country, or is it, I don't have kids, but, is it going to be my kids or my spouse, my siblings, my parents? I try to, like, encompass that all together and say, how am I going to make the biggest impact? And yes, this should be, numero uno. This should be the first priority at all times. But I like to like
I
be
like that
able to,
Spanish drop.
yeah,
It's going good, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I think it's just important to be able to say what is going, like at the end of the day, what's going to make me sleep well at night. Um, and being able to look at it that way. And for me, again, it's like, is this going to help me leave a legacy later on down the road? Is this going to make people around me better? I hope that helps.
Yes, I think so. And Barbara wants to know what you're getting your PhD in.
So education, actually, and that's a long story. Make it quick. But so with what I do right now with snowboarding and mountaineering and all of that, like I do this because first and foremost, I do love it. But I also use it as this platform to be able to inspire the next generation to use more of their potential, or just men and women, kids, whoever in general, but specifically in my case, the next generation. But I'd also be really naive to think that this isn't going to hurt a lot more in 10 years. And so with what I want to do with education, instead of instead of inspiring people to do more physically, I want to be able to like encourage and inspire the younger generation to be able to have an appreciation and hunger for knowledge. So that's where that came from, out of nowhere. Education.
That's awesome. She's an idea factory. She is. Um, so, and then someone asked how old you are as well.
29.
Pam, 29. And how do you remember what you've accomplished?
So
29 years old and accomplished so much.
So I honestly, it's kind of funny and kind of sad at the same time. But I have a hard time remembering a lot of things because I do so much on one hand to distract myself and maybe kind of bottle up some of those issues that I'm not, really working through yet. Um, but I don't know, jokingly on one hand, like I do journal about them because I don't want to forget any of this. But I don't know. One of the things that mindfulness and being present, one of the things that I've failed at is being present, and kind of piggybacking off of what she said, I really want to be present moving forward because I do forget a lot. I space out a lot. I'm all over the place all the time. So slowing myself down for sure. That's a personal goal.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder for all of us as, we're pulled in a lot of different directions, and being present and journaling. I like that too, with being able to go back to it.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good question to potentially end on, unless we have more come in. But as someone who has overcome so much trauma in your life, what advice do you have for us in the coming weeks and months as we all try to manage our relationships while coping with the stress of this pandemic?
The big thing is we can't control what this crazy, vicious world is going to throw at us. We have no control over that. But what we can control is our reactions. We can control our perspectives towards these situations, and we can control what we make of it. So I encourage everybody to take this whole situation with a grain of salt, pull the silver linings, pull the good out of it, what you can. And again, use it to be able to come out of this just the best version of yourself. Because I would hate, I think we would all hate to look back on the, potentially 2 months from now and say, hey, I could have done this better, or I could have changed something. And I don't know. I think we should all just capitalize on this time wisely. And again, check in with yourself, self-reflect, figure out where you want to be when you come out of this, and take the necessary steps. It's not going to be easy, to be honest with yourself, and making that work, or making that effort rather for yourself, can be challenging, but make yourself a priority. We don't know how long this is going to last, but I don't know, we need to make the best of it.
Well said. And, that's really the idea of having this self-care month in MSI too, and going through just different ideas and practices that we can try out to prioritize ourselves. So I think that's all the questions. Amanda asked, how can we support what you are doing?
Thank you, Amanda. Honestly, in short, because I don't want to ask anything from anybody in this time, I mean, just follow along with what we're doing on Facebook and on Instagram. It's just my name, Kirstie Ennis, and even just the Kirstie Ennis Foundation. Just be involved and be engaged and check in with what we're doing, because we do a ton for women veterans. We do a ton for the veteran community. And quite frankly, I would love to get to interact with you guys more and beyond this platform. So yeah, let's work on building some community.
Absolutely. So if you did come late, just a reminder that we'll be posting the replay video on the MSI platform. And if you haven't joined already, you can join MSI by going to militarysisterhoodinitiative.org and clicking request to join. And the link is also in the chat to get there directly. So we look forward to continuing this conversation and other conversations with all of you, and continuing to support each other through this time and beyond. And thank you so much, Kirstie, for spending this time with us. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for having me. And again, everybody, just stay in touch. I'm an open book if you guys come up with questions later. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys again.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. Have a great evening and stay safe out there.